Welcome to another edition of If This Car Could Talk. This week's feature car is a perfect blend of elements that truly make it one of a kind and the ideal car for its current caretaker, Rick Eckenrode. Rick has been a fan of Chevrolet cars and trucks for as long as he can remember. When he sought out this captivating example, he wanted it to be exactly as he wanted it, not a painstakingly correct restoration. He enjoys driving the car, and it's exactly how he would have ordered it new in 1966, and then tastefully modified it as a Day 2 car. Refinished from its original color of willow green with a fawn vinyl top to the attractive color combination it proudly wears now of lemonwood yellow with a black vinyl top, the car's cosmetic transformation could still be considered correct for the era, but a bit more elegant and understated. The interior was in such good condition during the car's transformation that all that needed to be done was to replace the seat covers and the carpet. Under the hood, a fire-breathing, real honest-to-goodness 427 Chevrolet engine now takes up residence between the shock towers. A turbo 400 transmission sends all of the power from the well-built mechanical cam big block back to the 12-bolt rear axle. We'll take a closer look at Rick's stunningly beautiful 66 Caprice. I know you're going to love it.
My name is Rick Eckenrode. I live in Peoria, Arizona. I've had this car for 5 years. Bought it from a buddy back east. Actually saw a Craigslist ad, and from speaking with the seller, I found out it was a friend from back in the day. I was definitely looking for a 1966 Chevrolet. The more unique, the better. I like Impalas. I always like Caprices too, but this one had the equipment on it that I felt would best suit me being here in Arizona and having working air conditioning. I found it back in Maryland. A buddy of mine lived in Middletown, Maryland. Has a very vintage repair shop that he comes across cars, does what he does with them, and resells them. It was in very much the condition you see it now. Was missing a lot of details and a few other trim parts that he did not put back on the car, but it was already painted. Vinyl top was done. It was a running, driving cruiser that he actually used for 3 years before selling. When I got it, I almost immediately dealt with some incorrectly painted trim parts, and slowly but surely, as I've owned it over the years, replaced missing trim or trim that was kind of so-so, and detailed under the hood, and recently just started detailing the undercarriage. Most notably and most difficult was overhauling the front suspension. As far as future plans, there's still a few other detail items that I would like to correct. Nothing major, but you never know if inexpensive bucket seat console, the factory stereo comes along, I may buy it and put it on this car. The nice thing about it is that I'm not worried about numbers matching. It's definitely a Day 2 car, and I'm not worried about it being 100% original. My favorite thing, probably, I'm not a yellow guy. It's just that when I saw this car, he really nailed the look. I love the yellow on this one, the black vinyl top, the black interior, the wheels. What I probably like about it is that the Caprice was a luxury car, a step above the Impalas, yet this car has headers, it's got a loud exhaust on it, and it's not something that somebody would do back in the day of hot rodding a luxury car. The 1966 full-size Chevrolet really has a soft spot for me. Before this, I was into muscle cars. I had a 69 Chevelle Super Sport that was my very first car. Just 5 years ago, I just decided I had enough, especially driving around in almost perfect restoration. Just wasn't fun anymore. But the reason why the 66 was why I liked them so much was a buddy of mine back east came upon a 66 Impala that for East Coast standards was very, very nice. And he was unable to sell it. So I said, kind of kiddingly, you should give it to me and I'll bring it out here. I guarantee you I'll sell it for decent money. Well, he took me up on it. So 3 months later, my son and I flew out to Forest Hill, Maryland, and after going over the car and deciding it was definitely roadworthy, it was all stock, so I knew I'd have no issues. We got in the car and headed on out, just along the way, stopping at the gas stations. There was never been a car that I've owned before that just got so many people asking questions. I had one of those, only mine was green, mine was blue, whatever. Brought the car back here, and I did some work on it. Just noticed that working on it, fixing this, doing that, I just liked the car. Very well designed, very well put together. Actually enjoyed it for almost a year before I decided to sell it. And I got decent money for a 66 Impala. I liked it, but it was a strip model. I like this car because it's still a 66 Chevy, but it's got a lot of options on it that I would have spec'd out having if I had to order one.
The 1966 full-size Chevys had a lot in common with the previous year, but there were also many new styling and mechanical features not seen in 1965. The full-size lineup from Chevrolet in 1964 had a wheelbase of 111.7 inches, same as it had been for several years prior. In 1965, these cars' wheelbase specs were now increased to 119 inches, over 7 inches longer. When 1966 arrived, the cars appeared similar to the ones from the previous year, but upon casual observation, it was quickly evident that there were obvious differences in the grille, some trim pieces, a few different color choices in interior trim motifs, and the most radical change from 1965 to 1966 was the taillights. 1965s were round and grouped together in 3 from left to right, while 1966 taillights were horizontal and rectangular one-piece units. Under the hood, the standard 6-cylinder engine went from 230 cubic inches up to 250. In 1965, at least in the very first part of the year, the legendary 409 engine was still available in 2 horsepower ratings, only to be replaced in 1966 by the newly designed Porcupine Head 396 engine and its badass cousin, the 427. Really big news for 66 on the showroom floor at your local Chevy dealer is that the Caprice was now a separate model, available as a 2-door hardtop sports sedan with a distinct newly designed roof, a 4-door hardtop sports sedan, and 2 different deluxe station wagons with simulated wood exterior applique panels in either a 2 or 3-seat model. The Caprice name designation was first seen in mid-65 as the name on a luxury trim package option for the Impala 4-door hardtop. Chevrolet offered additional Caprice models for the 1966 and subsequent model years, including a formal hardtop coupe and an estate station wagon. The Caprice name was supposedly coined by Chevrolet's general sales manager Bob Lund after a trendy New York City restaurant he regularly patronized. Some say the car may have been named after Caprice Chapman, daughter of the auto executive and influential IndyCar official named James P. Chapman. However this nomenclature originated, it's one of the all-time greatest names in automotive history. In addition to Corvairs, Corvettes, C and K series pickup trucks, Malibus and Novas, the full-size Chevrolets were available in 4 series. The entry-level base model Biscayne, seen as a 2 or 4-door sedan and a 2-seat 4-door wagon. Next up was the Bel Air, by now a very familiar name with Chevy buyers. Available as a 2- or 4-door sedan and both 2- and 3-seat wagons. If a customer wanted to go a bit fancier, the Impala series fit the bill nicely. A 2-door hardtop, a convertible, a 4-door hardtop and sedan, 2- and 3-seat station wagons, and the Super Sport package, which was available in only 2-door hardtop and soft top versions, were now more than enough to cover what the majority of full-size car buyers wanted. Engine choices varied from model to model, but power plant options were quite extensive and could technically be ordered in any series or body type. 15 single-tone colors were now on the order sheets, 6 of which were new for '66. 2-tone combos could be ordered in 8 different configurations. Depending on the model selected, many different interior trim colors in cloth, vinyl, or cloth and vinyl could be ordered to complement available vinyl and convertible top colors. Along with over 50 different factory and dealer installed options, a customer could really personalize his car to exactly what he wanted. Sales on the Caprice was not nearly that of the Impala. My opinion is that for the extra cost of the Caprice over the Impala, a buyer could step up to a Pontiac or Oldsmobile if he wanted to stay in the GM family, and they oftentimes did. Just like today, cars that the public considered more expensive or more deluxe got immediate respect from onlookers. By the beginning of 1967, the typical biennial restyle that every American automaker did for many of their models also occurred in the full-size Chevrolet models, giving them a bigger and bolder appearance. The 100 millionth GM car, built in the United States, was a light blue metallic 1967 Caprice Coupe. It was assembled on April 21, 1967 at the Janesville, Wisconsin plant. The 1968s again got a minor facelift, with the grills and taillights being the most obvious exterior amenity. A big change was that the Caprice's formal roof could now also be ordered in the Impala line. It was called an Impala Custom Coupe. This was also the first year that hidden headlamps would be optional on the Caprice, and the debut of the 307 cubic inch small block V8, which now replaced the 283. The next styling change was seen in 1969, when the Caprice and other full-size Chevrolets were restyled with new body lines and front bumpers that wrapped around the grille. Another obvious characteristic of the 69s were the ventless front windows on all models. The topmost station wagon was renamed the Kingswood Estate and continued to use exterior wood grain trim along with the interior trim of the Caprice sedans and coupes. The 1970 full-size Chevys, including the Caprice, received a minor facelift featuring a more conventional under-the-grille bumper, replacing the wraparound unit used in 1969, along with new triple vertical taillights in the rear bumper. Power front disc brakes and fiberglass belted tires on 15-inch wheels were made standard equipment, along with a 350 cubic inch engine. It was dubbed the TurboFire V8 and produced 250 horses. Other optional V8s included a new 265 horsepower small block 400 cubic inch TurboFire V8. The top engine option this year was the new 454 cubic inch turbojet V8, offered in both 345 or 390 horsepower versions. For 1971, the top-of-the-line Caprice was completely redesigned on a longer 121.5-inch wheelbase, and now prominently featured bold, Chrysler-like fuselage styling. Flush exterior door handles and double-shelled roofs were now new on the Caprice, both features first appearing on the 1970.5 Camaro and Pontiac Firebird. The new styling was highlighted by a Cadillac-like egg crate grille with a Caprice emblem in the center and brushed metal trim surrounding the taillights on the rear deck. The full perimeter frame and all coil suspension were refined for improvements in ride and noise reduction. Inside were revised interiors featuring a 2-spoke cushioned steering wheel and new instrument panel with horizontal sweep speedometer and instrument placement similar to previous full-size Chevrolets. Caprices continued with higher grade interiors than their Impala counterparts, with luxurious cloth and vinyl upholstery, wood trim on the dash, steering wheel and door panels, plus carpeting on lower door panels on both sedans and coupes. Station wagons now rode on a unique 125-inch wheelbase and were larger than ever before. Station wagons continued to use unique model names. The Kingswood Estate wagon was still the top of the line wagon, the equivalent to the Caprice. Wagons featured a clamshell designed tailgate, marketed as the glide-away taillight throughout GM's wagons offerings. Also called a disappearing tailgate because when it opened fully, the tailgate was completely out of the view as it disappeared into the body of the wagon. The major biennial restyling of the 73s was readily apparent due to the mandatory 5-mile-an-hour impact front bumper and the 2.5-mile-per-hour impact rear bumper. The Caprice was renamed as a Caprice Classic for the 73 model year, and the Kingswood Estate wagon was now called the Caprice Estate. The convertible was moved from the Impala to the Caprice lineup for the first time during that model year. The next restyle came about in, you guessed it, 1975. One more year with this basic design and then on to the 1977 models, which now rode on a completely new 116-inch wheelbase. This revamp would last through the end of 1979. For the sake of brevity, and because although the Caprice name endured until now, the cars were becoming radically different than our feature car, so I'll just highlight a few of the more obvious differences. The next major change took place for the 1980 model year, lasting through 1985. The 86 was new and carried on until 1990. The 1991 cars were completely restyled. They completely replaced the 1977-based rectangular design with rounded, more aerodynamic sheet metal. While the body and interior were all new, the chassis and powertrain were largely carried over from the 1990 models. Anti-lock brakes were added as standard equipment on all cars. Several major components, including the floor pan, are entirely interchangeable between 1977 and 1996. Many of these fourth-generation autos served duty as police cars. The fifth-generation Caprice debuted in 1999. Chevrolet had apparently decided to put this model name on hiatus for 2 years. The final 6th-gen cars were available from 2006 until the end of 2017. The legacy of the Caprice name was reinforced twice by Motor Trend magazine when it named the Caprice the Car of the Year in both 1977 and again in 1991. I understand that there are enthusiasts for each of these generations, and there are so many minor and major changes year to year. But in order to not stray too far from our feature car, I only briefly mentioned the other generations. I still feel like they're important to the history of the Caprice nameplate, which lasted for over half a century. Many thanks to Rick Eckenrode for taking the time to show off his elegant yet muscular 1966 Chevrolet Caprice. I get to a lot of car events, and it's quite unusual to see a 1966 Caprice, especially one this nice. Now I can add an early Caprice to my Cars Wanted wish list, which seems to grow longer by the day. If you like this video, be sure to give it the thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss my weekly videos. I also welcome your comments. If you have a vehicle with a fascinating story that you'd like me to showcase, you can email me at ifthiscarcouldtalk@gmail.com. Maybe you'll see it here and share your story with the world. Until next time.